First contact gone wrong. The vast emptiness of space stretched out before Captain Sarah Chen as she stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, humanity's first deep space exploration vessel. After years of preparation and months of travel, they had finally reached the edge of known space, ready to make history. "Captain, we're picking up an anomalous signal," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, his fingers dancing across the holographic display. "It doesn't match any known human frequencies." Sarah's heart raced. Could this be it? First contact. "Put it on speakers," she ordered, her voice steady despite the excitement coursing through her veins. A series of chirps and clicks filled the bridge, unlike anything they had ever heard before. The crew exchanged glances, a mix of anticipation and apprehension on their faces. "Run it through the universal translator," Sarah commanded. "Let's see if we can make sense of this." Moments later, a robotic voice emerged from the ship's speakers. "Unidentified vessel, you have entered restricted Zarkeli space. State your intentions or be destroyed." Sarah's excitement turned to dread. This wasn't the peaceful first contact they had hoped for. "Open a channel," she said, straightening her uniform. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Ship Horizon. We come in peace and apologize for any trespass. We are on a mission of exploration and mean no harm." There was a tense silence as they waited for a response. When it came, it was not what they had hoped for. "Your presence is a violation of Zarkeli law. Prepare to be boarded and your crew detained." Sarah's mind raced. They couldn't allow themselves to be taken prisoner by an unknown alien race. "Negative," she responded. "We will withdraw from your space immediately. There's no need for." Her words were cut off by a violent shudder that rocked the ship. Warning klaxons blared as red emergency lights bathed the bridge in an eerie glow. "We're under attack," Rodriguez shouted. "They've opened fire." Sarah gripped the arms of her command chair. "Evasive maneuvers. Bring weapons online." The horizon banked hard, narrowly avoiding another volley of energy weapons. Through the view screen, Sarah caught her first glimpse of the alien vessels, sleek, insectoid ships that moved with unnatural grace. "Return fire," Sarah ordered. "Target their weapon systems. We need to buy ourselves some time to escape." The Horizon's railguns sprang to life, launching hypervelocity projectiles at the Zarkeli ships. To Sarah's surprise, several found their mark, causing visible damage to the alien vessels. "Direct hits," Rodriguez exclaimed. "Their shields aren't as strong as we thought." But the Zarkeli quickly regrouped, their ships moving in perfect formation to surround the horizon. Sarah realized with a sinking feeling that they were outmatched and outnumbered. "All hands, prepare for emergency FTL jump," she announced over the ship-wide comm. "Navigation, plot us a course out of here now." As the crew scrambled to comply, Sarah couldn't help but wonder how it had come to this. Their mission of peace and exploration had turned into a battle for survival in a matter of minutes. The ship rocked again as another Zarkeli blast found its mark. "Hull breach on Deck 3. An ensign reported. "Emergency force fields are holding, but we can't take much more of this." Sarah made a split-second decision. "Divert all non-essential power to the FTL drive. We're jumping, ready or not." The familiar hum of the FTL drive built to a crescendo as the Horizon prepared to tear a hole in the fabric of spacetime. Just as another barrage of Zarkeli weapons fire was about to hit, the stars outside the viewscreen stretched into lines, and the ship vanished in a flash of light. Moments later, they emerged in empty space, far from the Zarkeli ships. A collective sigh of relief swept through the bridge. "Damage report," Sarah called out, her voice hoarse. "Multiple hull breaches, FTL drive strained but functional, weapons at 60% capacity," Rodriguez rattled off. "We got lucky, Captain." Sarah nodded grimly. Lucky was an understatement. They had just survived humanity's first interstellar battle, but at what cost? As the adrenaline began to wear off, the gravity of the situation sank in. They were alone in uncharted space, their ship damaged, and they had just made an enemy of the first alien civilization they had encountered. "Set a course for the nearest human outpost," Sarah ordered. "We need to warn Earth. It looks like we're not alone in the galaxy after all, and our new neighbors aren't friendly." As the horizon limped away, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Humanity had dreamed of reaching the stars for centuries, but now that they were here, they found themselves facing a threat they could never have imagined. Little did they know, this encounter would set in motion a chain of events that would test the very limits of human resilience, ingenuity, and determination. The battle for survival had only just begun. The Battle of Proxima Centauri. 6 months after the disastrous first contact with the Zarkali, humanity found itself embroiled in a war it never wanted. The alien empire, vastly more advanced and utterly ruthless, had launched a series of devastating attacks on Earth's fledgling colonies. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the newly christened UES Defiant, a warship built in record time to face the Zarkali threat. The scars from their first encounter still haunted her, but there was no time for dwelling on the past. The present demanded her full attention. "Status report," she barked, eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the Proxima Centauri system. Lieutenant Rodriguez, who had followed her from the horizon, responded quickly. "Zarkali fleet incoming, Captain. Estimate 30 ships, including what appears to be their flagship." Sarah's jaw clenched. 30 against their meager defense force of 7 ships. The odds were not in their favor. "They're after the shipyards," she muttered. Proxima Centauri was home to humanity's most advanced manufacturing facilities, crucial for building the fleet they desperately needed. If it fell, the war might be over before it truly began. "All ships, battle formation Delta," Sarah ordered over the fleet-wide channel. "Remember your training. We may be outnumbered, but we're fighting for our homes, our families, our very existence. We will not let them take this system." As the human ships moved into position, the Zarkali fleet emerged from FTL, their insectoid vessels filling the view screen. Sarah had to admire their precision, each ship seamlessly taking its place in a formation that looked more like a living organism than a fleet. "They're charging weapons," Rodriguez reported, his voice tense. Sarah took a deep breath. This was it. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Concentrate fire on their lead vessels. Let's show them what humanity is made of. The space around Proxima Centauri erupted into chaos as energy beams and projectiles crisscrossed the void. The human ships, though fewer in number, moved with an unpredictability that seemed to confuse the Zarkali. Sarah had drilled her fleet relentlessly, emphasizing the need for unconventional tactics against their technologically superior foe. "Now," Sarah shouted as a gap appeared in the Zarkali formation. "Raptors, commence attack run." From behind Proxima Centauri's largest moon, a squadron of small, agile fighters emerged. These were humanity's secret weapon. Ships so small they barely registered on Zarkali sensors, piloted by the best Earth had to offer. The Raptors streaked towards the Zarkali fleet, weaving through the barrage of enemy fire. As they closed in, they launched a volley of specially designed missiles. The warheads, packed with a cocktail of electromagnetic pulse generators and nanite disruptors, slammed into the hulls of several Zarkali ships. The effect was instantaneous. The targeted ship shields flickered and died, their weapons falling silent. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Human ingenuity was evening the odds. "All ships, press the advantage," she commanded. "Take out those disabled vessels before they can recover." The battle raged on, a deadly dance of destruction against the backdrop of Proxima Centauri's crimson light. Sarah's fleet fought with everything they had, each crew member knowing that failure meant the loss of not just the shipyards, but potentially humanity's last, best hope for survival. Hours passed, and the tide of battle ebbed and flowed. The Defiant shuddered as another Zarkali blast found its mark, overloading the shields on the port side. "Hull breach, Deck 5. An ensign called out. Emergency teams responding. Sarah gripped her chair, forcing herself to remain calm. They had destroyed or disabled over half of the Zarkeli fleet, but at a terrible cost. 3 of their 7 ships were little more than floating debris, their crews fighting desperately to survive in the unforgiving vacuum of space. "Captain," Rodriguez's voice cut through the chaos. "The Zarkeli flagship, it's changing course. I think they're retreating." Sarah's eyes snapped to the tactical display. Sure enough, the massive Zarkeli vessel was turning away from the battle, its remaining escorts falling into formation around it. "They're running," Sarah breathed, hardly daring to believe it. "We've won." A ragged cheer went up on the bridge, echoed across the comms by the surviving ships of the fleet. They had done it. Against all odds, they had defended Proxima Centauri. As the Zarkeli ships winked out of existence, jumping to FTL, Sarah allowed herself a moment to slump in her chair. The cost had been high, too high, but they had proven something today. Humanity could stand against the Zarkeli. They could fight. They could win. "Send word to Earth," Sarah ordered, her voice weary but determined. Tell them Proxima Centauri stands, and let them know we've got work to do." As the adrenaline of battle faded, Sarah's mind raced with the implications of their victory. They had bloodied the Zarkeli's nose, but she knew this was far from over. The alien empire would be back, and in greater numbers. But for now, humanity had hope. They had shown that determination, creativity, and the will to survive could overcome even the most daunting odds. As Sarah looked out at the battle-scarred shipyards of Proxima Centauri, she made a silent vow. They would rebuild, they would adapt, and when the Zarkeli returned, humanity would be ready. The Battle of Proxima Centauri would go down in history as the moment humanity proved it belonged among the stars. But for Sarah Chen and her crew, it was just the beginning of a long, desperate struggle for survival in a hostile universe. The lone survivor, Corporal Alex Reeves, had never felt so alone. The acrid smell of burning circuitry filled his nostrils as he limped through the dense alien foliage of Novus Prime, Earth's most distant colony world. Just days ago, this had been a thriving outpost of human civilization. Now, it was a graveyard. Alex's left arm hung useless at his side, a makeshift tourniquet stemming the flow of blood from where his Zarkeli energy weapon had nearly severed it. His combat armor, once pristine, was now a patchwork of scorch marks and hastily applied Medigel. But he was alive, and as long as he drew breath, he would fight. The sound of Zarkeli search parties echoed in the distance. They were looking for survivors, no doubt to interrogate and study. Alex had no intention of becoming their lab rat. As he crested a hill, he caught sight of the colony's main complex in the valley below. Once a beacon of human achievement, it now stood as a smoldering ruin. But more importantly, it housed something the Zarkeli wanted: the quantum communications array that allowed instantaneous communication across light years. Alex's military training kicked in. If he could deny the enemy that technology, it might buy Earth valuable time. With grim determination, he began to formulate a plan. Over the next several days, Alex became a ghost in the machine. Using his knowledge of the colony systems and the cover of the alien jungle, he launched a one-man guerrilla war against the Zarkeli occupation force. One night, he sabotaged their power generators, plunging half the colony into darkness. The next, he reprogrammed the atmospheric processors to release a thick fog, blinding Zarkeli sensors. Each small victory was a blow against the crushing weight of despair. The Zarkeli, for their part, were baffled. Their reports, intercepted by Alex through jury-rigged communicators, spoke of a human demon that struck without warning and vanished without a trace. They couldn't comprehend how a single injured human could cause so much chaos. But the toll on Alex was immense. Each day brought new injuries, new close calls. He subsisted on emergency rations and whatever he could scavenge. Sleep came in fitful bursts, always with one eye open. The constant pain and stress began to wear on his sanity. Yet he persevered. The thought of Earth, of his family, of all that would be lost if he failed, drove him onward. In his darkest moments, he remembered the words of his old drill sergeant. A human's greatest weapon isn't in their hands, it's in their head. As long as you've got that, you're never beaten. On the 10th day of his solitary resistance, Alex made his move. Using the distractions he had so carefully laid over the past week, he infiltrated the main complex. The Zarkeli, still struggling to adapt to his unconventional tactics, were caught off guard. Fighting through waves of pain and exhaustion, Alex fought his way to the central control room. There he found what he had been looking for, the quantum communications array, partially disassembled by Zarkeli technicians. With the last of his strength, Alex activated the array's self-destruct sequence. As klaxons blared and Zarkeli soldiers converged on his position, he allowed himself a small smile. He had done it. The valuable technology was beyond the aliens' reach. But Alex's mission wasn't over. As Zarkeli energy blasts rained down around him, he dragged himself to a backup terminal. With trembling fingers, he composed a final message to be broadcast on all frequencies to any human ships in range. This is Corporal Alex Reeves, sole survivor of Novus Prime. The colony has fallen, but the enemy has been denied the QC array. Zarkeli forces are in disarray. Strike now, while they, to any human ships in range. This is Corporal Alex Reeves, sole survivor of Novus Prime. The colony has fallen, but the enemy has been denied the QC array. Zarkeli forces are in disarray. Strike now, while they're vulnerable. For Earth. With the last of his strength, Alex hit the broadcast button. The message shot out into space, riding the quantum frequencies that the Zarkeli had sought so desperately to control. Whether anyone would hear it, he didn't know, but he had done his duty. As the room filled with Zarkeli soldiers, Alex turned to face them. His body was broken, his left arm useless, but his spirit remained undefeated. He raised his rifle with his good arm, a defiant grin on his face. "Come on, you bastards," he growled. "Let's see what you're made of." What happened next would become the stuff of legend among both humans and Zarkeli alike. Despite being outnumbered and grievously wounded, Alex fought with a ferocity that left the alien soldiers stunned. He moved with an impossible speed, his actions guided by pure instinct and indomitable will. Every shot found its mark. Every movement denied the Zarkeli a clean target. The alien commander, observing from a safe distance, couldn't believe what he was seeing. This human, this lone, injured creature, was holding off an entire squad of Zarkeli elite troops. It defied all logic, all understanding of biology and physics. How? The commander chittered to his second-in-command. How can it still fight? The second-in-command had no answer. They had studied humans, dissected them, analyzed their physiology. But nothing in their research had prepared them for this display of sheer raw determination. As the battle raged on, more Zarkeli poured into the room. Yet Alex refused to fall. Each time he was hit, he seemed to fight harder. When his rifle ran dry, he used it as a club. When it was shot from his hands, he fought with fists and teeth. The Zarkeli soldiers, trained to fight as a cohesive unit, found themselves at a loss against this unpredictable, seemingly unkillable opponent. Some began to back away, their mandibles clicking in fear. "Stand your ground," the commander ordered, but there was a tremor in his voice. For the first time in his long military career, he felt a flicker of doubt. If all humans were capable of this, how could they ever be defeated? Just as it seemed Alex might actually succeed in fighting off the entire Zarkeli force, fate intervened. A stray shot hit a damaged power conduit, sending a surge of energy through the room. Alex, caught in the discharge, finally collapsed. As the smoke cleared, the Zarkeli approached cautiously, weapons trained on the fallen human. To their amazement, Alex was still breathing, still conscious. His eyes, filled with pain but undiminished in their intensity, locked onto the Zarkeli commander. Is that all you've got? Alex wheezed, a bloody smile on his face. The commander stared at the human in a mixture of fear and awe. He had come to this backward planet expecting an easy victory. Instead, he had witnessed something that shook him to his core. "Take him," the commander ordered, his voice subdued. "Alive, the High Command will want to study this one." As the Zarkali carried Alex away, the commander looked around the devastated control room. The quantum communications array was destroyed, their carefully laid plans in ruins, and it had all been done by a single determined human. For the first time, the Zarkali commander felt an emotion he had never experienced before: doubt. If one human could do this, what were they truly facing in this war? Unbeknownst to the Zarkali, Alex's final message had been received. Light years away, a human patrol ship picked up the quantum broadcast. As they listened to Corporal Reeves' words, the crew looked at each other in stunned silence. Then, as one, they turned their ship toward Novus Prime. The battle for the colony wasn't over yet, and thanks to one man's indomitable spirit, humanity now had a chance to strike back. Alex Reeves' stand would be remembered as a turning point in the war, not for its strategic importance, but for what it represented. It was proof that humanity, when pushed to the brink, was capable of feats that defied explanation. It was a demonstration of the human spirit at its most raw and powerful. And for the Zarkali, it was the first inkling that perhaps, just perhaps, they had underestimated their opponent. The turning point. Captain Sarah Chen stood before the United Earth Defense Council, her uniform crisp despite the weariness evident in her posture. The past year had been a brutal slog of hit-and-run tactics, desperate defenses, and too many lives lost. But today, she carried with her a spark of hope. "Ladies and gentlemen of the Council," Sarah began, her voice steady, "I stand before you with a proposal that could turn the tide of this war." The councilors leaned forward, their faces a mix of skepticism and desperate hope. They had heard many plans over the past year, most ending in failure. Sarah activated the holographic display in the center of the room. A schematic of a Zarkali ship appeared, rotating slowly. "Thanks to the heroic efforts of Corporal Alex Reeves on Novus Prime, we were able to capture a partially intact Zarkali vessel," Sarah explained. "Our scientists have been working around the clock to reverse engineer their technology, and we've made a breakthrough." The hologram shifted, showing a complex network of energy pathways. "This is the Zarkali's quantum entanglement drive," Sarah continued. "It's what allows them to coordinate their fleets with such precision across vast distances. But more importantly, it's their greatest weakness." A murmur ran through the council chamber. Sarah allowed herself a small smile before continuing. "We've developed a device that can disrupt this network. If we can plant it on their command ship, we can throw their entire fleet into chaos." The council erupted into excited chatter. Admiral Zhao, a grizzled veteran of countless battles, raised his hand for silence. "It's an ambitious plan, Captain Chen," he said, his voice gravelly. "But how do you propose to get this device onto their command ship? The Zarkali aren't exactly inviting us aboard for tea." Sarah's expression turned grim. "That's where the second part of my plan comes in. We're going to let them capture us." The room fell silent. Sarah quickly continued before the protests could begin. "A small team, led by myself, will allow our ship to be taken by the Zarkali. Once aboard their command vessel, we'll plant the device and sabotage their systems from within." "It's suicide," one of the councilors muttered. "It's our best chance," Sarah countered. "The Zarkali are overconfident. They don't expect us to have the capability or the audacity to strike at the heart of their fleet. That's our advantage." Admiral Zhao studied Sarah for a long moment. "And your team? Who would you take on this mission?" Sarah straightened. "I selected the best of the best, sir. Lieutenant Rodriguez, my tactical officer. Dr. Emily Wong, our foremost expert on Zarkali technology. And," she paused, knowing the next name would cause a stir, "Corporal Alex Reeves." The council chamber erupted again. Alex Reeves had become a symbol of human resistance, his stand on Novus Prime the stuff of legend. But he had also been a prisoner of the Zarkali for months before being rescued in a daring raid. Reeves? Admiral Zhou asked, raising an eyebrow. Is he stable enough for this mission? Sarah nodded firmly. Corporal Reeves has been cleared for duty by our top psychologists. More importantly, he knows Zarkali ships better than anyone. We need him. The council debated for hours, picking apart every detail of Sarah's plan. But in the end, faced with dwindling resources and mounting losses, they had little choice. Very well, Captain Chen. Admiral Zhou said finally. Your mission is approved. May God have mercy on your souls, because the Zarkali certainly won't. 2 weeks later, Sarah stood on the bridge of the UES Trojan Horse, a ship specifically modified for this mission. Beside her, Lieutenant Rodriguez manned the tactical station, his usual easygoing demeanor replaced by intense focus. Dr. Wong sat at a makeshift science station, surrounded by hastily assembled equipment. Her fingers danced over the controls, making last-minute adjustments to the quantum disruption device. And there, standing quietly by the airlock, was Corporal Alex Reeves. His left arm had been replaced by an advanced prosthetic, and his eyes held a haunted look. But when he met Sarah's gaze, she saw the same indomitable spirit that had kept him fighting on Novus Prime. All systems ready, Captain, Rodriguez reported. Zarkali patrol detected on long-range sensors. Sarah took a deep breath. This was it. Everything they had fought for. Every life lost in this war. It all came down to this moment. All right, people, she said, her voice steady. You know the mission. Once we're aboard their command ship, we'll have approximately 4 hours to plant the device and sabotage their systems before they realize we're not what we seem. She looked at each member of her team in turn. I won't lie to you. The odds are against us. But remember, we're fighting for more than just our own lives. We're fighting for Earth, for humanity's future among the stars. A series of nods answered her. They were ready. Lieutenant Rodriguez, take us in, Sarah ordered. Let's spring our trap. The Trojan horse moved slowly through space, its systems broadcasting fake distress signals. As the Zarkali ships approached, Sarah felt a mix of fear and anticipation. They were committed now. There was no turning back. Zarkali tractor beam engaging, Rodriguez reported. We're being pulled in. Sarah watched as the massive Zarkali command ship loomed before them, its insectoid design still alien and terrifying. After all this time. Remember, she said quietly, whatever happens, whatever you see, stay focused on the mission. We're humanity's last, best hope. As the Trojan horse was swallowed by the Zarkali hangar bay, Sarah allowed herself one final thought. Win or lose, after today, the war would never be the same. The real battle was about to begin. Part 5. Humanity's Stand. The corridors of the Zarkali command ship were a maze of organic curves and pulsating bioluminescent light. Captain Sarah Chen led her small team through the alien vessel, every sense on high alert. They had managed to slip away in the chaos of their capture, but it was only a matter of time before the Zarkali realized something was amiss. 2 minutes to the central nexus, Dr. Wong whispered, her eyes fixed on a holographic map projected from her wrist computer. Once we're there, I'll need about 5 minutes to install the quantum disruptor. Sarah nodded, then turned to Corporal Reeves. Alex, you're sure you can get us into their systems? Reeves' eyes were distant, haunted by memories of his captivity, but his voice was steady. Yes, Mom. Their biotech interfaces are unforgettable. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a pair of Zarkali guards. For a split second, both groups froze in surprise. Then, all hell broke loose. Reeves moved with inhuman speed, his prosthetic arm morphing into a deadly blade. Before the Zarkali could raise their weapons, he was upon them. Sarah and Rodriguez provided covering fire, their specially modified weapons punching through the aliens' chidness armor. In seconds, it was over, but the damage was done. Alarms blared throughout the ship, the walls themselves seeming to pulse with angry red light. "Move," Sarah shouted, double time to the Nexus. They sprinted through the corridors, the sounds of Zarkili troops mobilizing the echoing all around them. As they reached the central Nexus, a massive chamber filled with twisting biomechanical conduits, Sarah turned to her team. "Rodriguez, Reeves, hold them off. Dr. Wong and I will plant the device." As Wong set to work, her fingers flying over alien controls, Sarah provided cover. The air was thick with the scent of ozone as energy weapons discharge. Reeves and Rodriguez fought like demons, their movements a blur as they held off wave after wave of Zarkili soldiers. "Captain," Wong called out. "It's done. The disruptor is online." A massive tremor ran through the ship. On the far side of the chamber, a huge view screen flickered to life. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she saw the space around them erupt into chaos. Zarkili ships, their quantum entanglement network disrupted, were colliding with each other, their movements erratic and uncoordinated. But their victory was short-lived. A booming voice, filled with rage and disbelief, echoed through the chamber. Sarah turned to see a massive Zarkili, adorned in ornate bioarmor, enter the Nexus. The Zarkili Supreme Commander had arrived. "Humans," the alien's voice reverberated with disgust. "You dare to challenge the might of the Zarkili Empire. Your primitiveness knows no bounds." Sarah stepped forward, her weapon raised. "We may be primitive in your eyes, Commander, but we've managed to bring your mighty fleet to its knees." The Zarkili commander's multifaceted eyes glittered with malice. "A temporary setback. Your species will be eradicated, a footnote in the glorious history of Zarkili conquest." "I don't think so," Sarah replied, a grim smile on her face. "You see, while you were busy monologuing, we were busy transmitting." The commander's mandibles clicked in confusion. Sarah nodded to Dr. Wong, who activated a holographic display. It showed hundreds of human ships emerging from FTL, catching the disoriented Zarkili fleet completely off guard. "You're not the only ones who can set a trap," Sarah said. "Humanity's combined fleet, every ship we could muster, was waiting just out of your sensor range. And now, thanks to your arrogance, they're tearing your fleet apart." The Zarkili commander roared in fury, charging towards Sarah with alarming speed. But before he could reach her, a blur of motion intercepted him. Alex Reeves, his prosthetic arm morphed into a wicked blade, engaged the alien behemoth in close combat. "Go," Reeves shouted, his voice strained as he grappled with the commander. "Get to the Trojan horse. I'll hold him off." Sarah hesitated for a split second, torn between her duty to the mission and her unwillingness to leave a man behind, but she knew what had to be done. "Godspeed, Corporal," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Then to the others, "Move out." As Sarah, Rodriguez, and Wong fought their way back to their ship, the sounds of titanic combat echoed behind them. Reeves, the lone survivor of Novus Prime, was giving everything he had to buy them time. They reached the Trojan horse just as the Zarkili command ship began to break apart, the strain of the quantum disruption too much for its biomechanical systems to handle. As they lifted off, Sarah took one last look at the monitor, showing the epic battle unfolding in space. The human fleet, though outnumbered, fought with the coordination and determination that the Zarkili, used to relying on their quantum network, couldn't match. Ship after ship fell to human weapons, the aliens' technological superiority negated by human ingenuity and sheer willpower. As they cleared the disintegrating command ship, Sarah's calm crackled to life. "Captain Chen." Admiral Zhou's voice came through, filled with a mix of disbelief and pride. "You magnificent bastards. You actually did it." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Not just us, Admiral. This victory belongs to every human who's fought and died in this war, and to one in particular who gave everything to make it happen." As the Trojan horse rejoined the human fleet, Sarah watched the Zarkeli Armada crumble. As the Trojan horse rejoined the human fleet, Sarah watched the Zarkeli Armada crumble. Ship after ship winked out of existence, either destroyed or fleeing in disarray. The quantum disruption had thrown their entire command structure into chaos, and without it, they were facing an enemy they had grossly underestimated. "Captain," Rodriguez called out, his voice tight with emotion. "You need to see this." Sarah turned to the view screen, where a battered escape pod was limping away from the disintegrating Zarkeli command ship. Her heart leaped as she recognized the energy signature. "It's Reeves," she breathed. "He made it." As if on cue, the comm crackled to life. "This is Corporal Reeves," came a weak but unmistakable voice. "Requesting pickup. You wouldn't believe the day I've had." A cheer went up on the bridge of the Trojan horse. Sarah felt tears prick at her eyes as she gave the order to retrieve their impossibly resilient comrade. Hours later, as the last of the Zarkeli ships retreated or surrendered, Sarah stood in the makeshift war room aboard the human flagship. Admiral Zhao and the other fleet commanders looked at her with a mixture of awe and respect. "Captain Chen," Admiral Zhao began, his usual gruff demeanor softened by the magnitude of their victory, "I think I speak for all of humanity when I say, well done." Sarah nodded, accepting the praise on behalf of her team. "Thank you, sir. But this is just the beginning. We've won the battle, but the war is far from over." "Indeed," another commander chimed in. "But we've proven something today. We've shown the galaxy that humanity is not to be trifled with." As the strategic discussion continued, Sarah's mind wandered to the broader implications of their victory. They had done more than just defeat a superior force. They had shattered the Zarkeli's sense of invincibility, their belief in their own supremacy. In the medical bay, Corporal Alex Reeves lay on a bed, his body battered but his spirit unbroken. As Sarah entered, he tried to sit up, only to be gently pushed back down by Dr. Wong. "At ease, Corporal," Sarah said with a smile. "You've done more than enough for one day." Reeves managed a weak grin. "Just doing my job, Captain." Did we really win?" Sarah nodded, taking a seat beside his bed. "We did. Thanks in no small part to you, the Zarkeli Supreme Commander." Hours later, as the last of the Zarkeli ships retreated or surrendered, Sarah stood in the makeshift war room aboard the human flagship. Admiral Zhao and the other fleet commanders looked at her with a mixture of awe and respect. "Captain Chen," Admiral Zhao began, his usual gruff demeanor softened by the magnitude of their victory. "I think I speak for all of humanity when I say, well done." Sarah nodded, accepting the praise on behalf of her team. "Thank you, sir, but this is just the beginning. We've won the battle, but the war is far from over." "Indeed," another commander chimed in. "But we've proven something today. We've shown the galaxy that humanity is not to be trifled with." As the strategic discussion continued, Sarah's mind wandered to the broader implications of their victory. They had done more than just defeat a superior force. They had shattered the Zarkeli's sense of invincibility, their belief in their own supremacy. In the medical bay, Corporal Alex Reeves lay on a bed, his body battered but his spirit unbroken. As Sarah entered, he tried to sit up, only to be gently pushed back down by Dr. Wong. "At ease, Corporal," Sarah said with a smile. "You've done more than enough for one day." Reeves managed a weak grin. "Just doing my job, Captain." Did we really win?" Sarah nodded, taking a seat beside his bed. "We did. Thanks in no small part to you, the Zarkeli Supreme Commander." "Let's just say he won't be troubling anyone ever again," Reeves replied, a hint of grim satisfaction in his voice. As Sarah looked at Reeves, at Dr. Wong tending to the wounded, at Lieutenant Rodriguez coordinating with the fleet outside, she felt a surge of pride. This was humanity at its best, resilient, innovative, and unbreakable in the face of overwhelming odds. In the days and weeks that followed, the story of their victory spread across human space and beyond. The quantum disruptor technology was quickly adapted for wider use, leveling the playing field against the technologically superior Zarkali. But more than that, the battle had sparked something in the human psyche. Where once there had been fear and desperation, now there was hope and determination. Humanity had looked into the abyss of extinction and not only survived but triumphed. The war was far from over. The Zarkali Empire was vast, and they would not take this defeat lightly. But for the first time since the conflict began, the outcome was no longer a foregone conclusion. As Sarah stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt Proxima Centauri shipyards, watching a new fleet of human ships take shape, she reflected on how far they had come. From that first disastrous encounter to the epic battle they now called the Great Stand, humanity had proven itself worthy of the stars. A familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. "Penny for your thoughts, Captain." Sarah turned to see Corporal Reeves, now Lieutenant Reeves, approach. His prosthetic arm gleamed in the starlight, a testament to both what they had lost and what they had gained in this war. "Just thinking about the future, Lieutenant," Sarah replied. "We've shown the galaxy what we're capable of. Now we have to live up to it." Reeves nodded, his eyes scanning the stars. "They thought we were just another primitive species to be conquered. Bet they're rethinking that now." Sarah smiled. "Indeed, we may not have their technology or their numbers, but we have something they can't quantify or strategize against." "And what's that, Captain?" Sarah's gaze returned to the shipyards, where humans from every nation and background worked together, united in purpose. "The human spirit, Lieutenant. Adaptability, creativity, and a stubborn refusal to give up, no matter the odds. That's what makes us who we are. That's what will see us through." As they stood there, watching humanity forge its destiny among the stars, both Sarah and Reeves knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as they always had, together, with unwavering determination and the unbreakable spirit of their species. The Zarkali had awakened a sleeping giant, and in doing so, they had unknowingly paved the way for a new power in the galaxy. Humanity was here to stay, and the universe would never be the same again.